You ever have one of those nights where everything feels like it's hanging on the edge of something? Like the whole world is about to tilt and suddenly nothing's quite the same? Yeah, that was last Saturday for me. I swear, if someone had told me before I left the house that night that I'd be standing in the middle of a dark forest trail with my heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon, and that it'd be because of a guy the first barely knew, I probably would have laughed and said, yeah, right. Not my scene. So here's the deal. I've been working at this small bookstore downtown for almost a year now. It's a chill place, lots of regulars, the kind of job where you get to know people by the books they buy and the way they talk about them. One of those regulars is Jamie. He's a graphic designer who comes in every other week or so, always looking for something offbeat or maybe a little vintage. Tall, with that kind of messy dark hair that looks like he just rolled out of bed but in a cool way, and these deep brown eyes that somehow make everything he says sound interesting, even if he's just talking about his dog. We never really talked much beyond the usual bookstore banter. You know how it is. Looking for anything special? Just browsing. Thanks. But one day he mentioned a hiking group he's part of, how they like to do night trails sometimes, and I, totally on a whim and way out of character, said I'd come along next time. I wasn't even sure if he was serious. Turns out he was. So Saturday rolls around, and I find myself in the parking lot at the edge of this forest just outside town. The trailhead is quiet, with only the occasional rustle of leaves and distant owl calls breaking the silence. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous. Me, out in the woods at night with a bunch of people I mostly don't know? Not exactly my idea of a good time. But Jamie's there, leaning casually against his car, flashing that easy smile, and suddenly the weird butterflies in my stomach weren't entirely about the trail. We started off with a small group, maybe 6 of us. But as the night wore on, people peeled off one by one for different reasons. Early curfews, tired feet, or just wanting to head back. Eventually, it was just Jamie and me left on the path, the moonlight barely cutting through the thick canopy overhead. That's when things got different. We were walking side by side, the silence between us comfortable but charged, like there was something waiting to be said, but neither of us quite had the guts. Then, out of nowhere, Jamie stops, turns to me, and says something that made my breath catch. I remember thinking, okay, this is it. This is the moment. He made a move on the forest trail at night. He made a move on the forest trail at night. That's how I remember it anyway. Because it wasn't like he just leaned in and kissed me out of nowhere. No, it was way more subtle and way more real than that. We'd just passed this old, gnarled oak tree, the kind that looks like it's been standing there for 100 years, silently watching the world change around it. The moonlight was filtering down in patches, and suddenly everything felt sharper. The smell of pine, the crunch of leaves underfoot, the way Jamie's voice dropped a little when he said my name. Hey, he said, stopping and turning to face me. His eyes were serious, but there was this nervous energy flickering behind them, like he was about to say something important, but wasn't sure how. Yeah, I managed, heart thudding in my ears. I've been wanting to do this for a while. His hand reached out, just a fraction, and then he brushed a loose strand of hair off my forehead. It was the kind of small, intimate touch that makes your whole body sit up and listen. I stood there for a second, caught off guard. I mean, I liked Jamie, sure, who wouldn't? But I hadn't been expecting this. Being out in the middle of a dark forest, away from the noise and lights, it stripped everything down to something raw and honest. I felt vulnerable in a way that was both terrifying and thrilling. He took a step closer, and I could smell that faint scent of cedarwood cologne mixed with the earthiness of the forest. His breath was warm against my cheek. "Is this okay?" he asked quietly, and now it was my turn to be nervous. Because, yeah, it was definitely okay. More than okay. But words? They felt slippery, like I might lose them if I tried too hard. So I just nodded. That was when he closed the distance and kissed me. Not some dramatic movie scene kind of kiss, but quiet and slow, like he was making sure I wanted to be there with him. In that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. I could feel the roughness of his stubble against my skin, the softness of his lips, and the way his hands found mine, fingers weaving together like they'd been meant to for a long time. We pulled apart after a moment, both of us smiling a little awkwardly, like teenagers caught doing something we'd been dreaming about. "Wow," I said, laughing nervously. "Yeah," Jamie said, grinning. "That was definitely the most romantic thing I've done at night." I looked around, realizing how quiet the forest had gotten. No more footsteps behind us, no other voices. Just us, surrounded by trees that seemed to lean in closer, like they were rooting for us. We started walking again, slower this time, hands still linked. "So," I said, trying to break the silence, "you think coming out here was a good idea?" Jamie squeezed my hand. "Definitely. I don't usually do this kind of thing, you know? Night hikes, late-night heart-thumping moments." "Me neither," I admitted. He glanced over at me, eyes soft. "Maybe that's why it's perfect." I wanted to say something clever, something that would capture the way my chest felt about to burst, but I just nodded. When you're standing there, with the forest all around you, and someone you like holding your hand, sometimes words just don't cut it. We found a spot off the trail where the trees opened up a little, just enough to see the stars peeking through. Jamie sat down on a fallen log, patting the space next to him. "Sit with me?" he asked. I dropped my backpack and sat down beside him, shoulders almost touching. For a while, we just looked up at the sky. I could hear the faint rush of a nearby creek, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the steady beating of my own heart. There was something kind of amazing about sharing that silence with someone else, especially when it wasn't awkward or forced. "I've always liked the night," Jamie said after a while. "Feels like the world slows down. You notice things you miss during the day." I thought about that. I'd never really been a night person, but maybe I just hadn't found the right reasons to stay up late. "What about you?" he asked. "Honestly, I was mostly here because of you," I admitted. I wasn't sure what I'd get out of it, but I'm glad I did. Jamie smiled, that goofy, genuine smile that makes you want to smile back, even if you're trying not to. "You're pretty easy to like, you know that?" I rolled my eyes, but I felt my face heat up. "Don't get tooly," he chuckled. "Too late." The night stretched on, and before I knew it, the sky started to lighten at the edges. The forest was waking up, birds beginning their morning songs. We stood up, dusted the dirt off our pants, and started walking back toward the trailhead, hands still tangled together. On the way, Jamie said, "So, same time next week?" I laughed, feeling like I was floating a little. "Definitely." That night, as I lay in bed replaying everything, I realized something. Sometimes you just have to follow the unexpected trail, the one that leads you out of your comfort zone and into something real. And if that path happens to be dark, with a guy like Jamie by your side, well, maybe that's exactly where you're supposed to be. The next week came faster than I expected, and honestly, I was kind of surprised at how much I was looking forward to that hike. I mean, normally I'd be the guy who'd rather binge Netflix or scroll through my phone on a Saturday night, but for whatever reason, the idea of walking a forest trail with Jamie was different. Somehow, the thought of those quiet moments under the trees and the way he looked in the moonlight made my chest feel full in a way I wasn't used to. When I got to the parking lot that evening, Jamie was already there, leaning against his car with that same easy smile. Only this time, he'd brought a little backpack with a thermos of hot chocolate and a pack of marshmallows, because apparently, that's the kind of spontaneous thing he does now. "You're really upping the romance factor," I teased as I walked up. He grinned and held out the thermos like a trophy. "Hey, don't knock it until you try it." We set off down the trail, and this time more people came with us, some from Jamie's hiking group, some friends of theirs. It was a bigger crowd, louder, and felt less like the private little world we'd shared last time. But I didn't mind. I was content just staying near Jamie, catching his gaze when no one else was looking, and stealing little touches when the group paused. There was something about moving through the forest with a bunch of people behind us and the night all around that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. We made it to the clearing by the creek, this time illuminated by lanterns Jamie had brought, and everyone gathered around a small fire. Someone pulled out a guitar, and a few people started singing softly. It was warm and cozy, and I found myself sinking into the moment like it was exactly where I was supposed to be. Eventually, the group started to thin out again. Some folks left early, others wandered off to explore. Jamie and I stayed close by the fire, talking quietly. "So," he said, eyes glinting with that familiar nervous excitement, "how was your week? Anything new?" "Not much," I shrugged, though I knew he was fishing for more. "Work's the same mostly, but I've been thinking about that hike a lot." He raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? What about it?" I hesitated, then decided to just say it. "About you. About us." His smile softened, and he reached over to brush a leaf off my shoulder. "I've been thinking about that too." I felt my face heat up. "Does this mean what I think it means?" He laughed, a little breathlessly. "Yeah, I think it does." That night, as the fire crackled and the stars burned bright overhead, we talked more than we ever had before. About our pasts, our hopes, the weird little dreams we kept hidden from most people. I told him about my family, how I'd struggled to figure out how to be myself around them. He shared stories about his art projects and the way he sometimes felt like an outsider, even in a city full of millions. The more we talked, the more it felt like something real was growing between us. Not just a crush or a fleeting spark, but something steady and alive. When the fire died down and the chill started to creep in, Jamie suggested we walk back along the trail, just the two of us. The forest at night had a different vibe this time. It felt familiar, like a secret we shared. About halfway back, he stopped again, pulling me into a hug so warm it chased the cold right away. "I'm really glad you came with me tonight," he said softly, resting his forehead against mine. "Me too," I whispered. "I wasn't sure if I could do the whole night hiking thing, but you make it easy." He smiled, eyes shining with something I couldn't quite name. "I want to make a lot of things easy for you." I caught my breath, fingers curling around his shirt. Like what? Like being myself. Like being with someone who gets it. Like this. He gestured between us, the space where our hands were still linked. I laughed, shaky and a little breathless. "You're kind of amazing, you know that?" He grinned. "Right back at you." We walked the rest of the way in silence, only the sound of our footsteps and the night around us. When we reached the parking lot, Jamie surprised me by leaning in and kissing me again, this time longer, like we were both daring the world to interrupt us. "Same time next week?" he asked when we finally pulled apart. "Definitely." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a fling or a one-time thing. It was something I wanted to see grow, something I wanted to fight for. The next few weeks after that felt like a whirlwind. We hiked more nights, talked for hours on end, met each other's friends, and slowly peeled back all the layers we'd been hiding. Sometimes it was awkward and messy, like when I accidentally called him by an ex's name during a bad joke, or when he shared a family secret that made his eyes go dark for a moment. But every time, it felt like we were building something real, something worth holding on to. One night, a few weeks later, Jamie invited me to his place after a hike. His apartment was small but cozy, filled with art supplies, books, and plants. We cooked dinner together, me chopping veggies, him trying to keep me from burning the garlic bread, and laughed over a bottle of cheap wine. As the night wore on, we found ourselves curled up on his couch, fingers intertwined, the city lights twinkling outside his window. "I'm glad you made that move on the trail," I said quietly. Jamie smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "Me too. Best decision I ever made." And in that moment, wrapped up in each other's warmth and the soft hum of the city night, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. Weeks slipped by in this weird, wonderful blur. Between work at the bookstore, Jamie's late-night design deadlines, and our weekend hikes, I felt like I was living in a movie where everything was just finally making sense. But, of course, real life doesn't come with a soundtrack or easy lighting, and we both had stuff we needed to figure out. One afternoon, a few days after that night at Jamie's place, I was shelving some new arrivals when my phone buzzed. It was a message from him. Asterisk, coffee later? "I need to tell you something." My stomach flipped. That casual "need to tell you something" line can mean a million things, none of which are usually simple. But I texted back, asterisk, "Sure. When?" His reply came fast. Asterisk, 30 minutes. Place you know. The place was our usual little cafe by the bookstore. Quiet, with that weirdly addictive chai latte that I was pretty sure was just sugar and happiness in a cup. When I got there, Jamie was already sitting at our usual spot near the window, fingers drumming nervously on his mug. His gaze flicked up as I slid into the seat opposite him. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "Hey," he replied, swallowing hard. "Thanks for coming." I waited, but he kept his eyes trained on the table. Usually, Jamie was all words and jokes, but now there was this tension, like something was weighing on him. "Okay, spill it," I finally said. He looked up, meeting my eyes straight on. "I got a job offer." My heart skipped. "Awesome! Where?" "San Francisco." He paused, searching my face. "It's a big opportunity. More money, better projects, but it means moving. Like, really moving." This was the moment in every romantic story where everything gets complicated in real life. I nodded slowly, trying to process the news. "Wow, that's huge." "Yeah," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I wanted to tell you in person because I don't want to lose what we have." I reached across the table, grabbing his hand. "Jamie, you won't lose me." "But I get it. This is your dream." He squeezed my hand, relief flashing in his eyes. "I've been thinking about it for weeks. Part of me is terrified. Part of me knows I have to take it." I smiled, though my chest felt tight. "So what's next?" "We figure it out. Together, if you want." That was the moment I realized how much this mattered. Not just the idea of us being together, but the messy, imperfect, future we figure it out kind of love. Over the next few days, we started talking seriously about what this could look like. Jamie was excited about the new job, his voice lighting up when he described the projects, the city, the art scene. But he was honest about the fear too. The distance, the unknown. I told him about my worries, about the bookstore, about how hard it would be to leave my life here, about the way change sometimes felt like a cliff you had to jump off without knowing if there'd be water below. We didn't have answers, but we had each other. And somehow, that felt like a start. One night, a few days before he was supposed to leave for a final visit to San Francisco to sign paperwork, we went back to the forest trail. It was our way of grounding ourselves when life felt too fast. This time, the moon was hidden behind thick clouds, and the forest was darker than ever. We walked close together, the path barely visible beneath our feet. "I hate that this might be the last time here for a while," Jamie said softly. "Me too," I admitted. "I'm scared." He stopped and turned to me, eyes full of that familiar softness. "I don't want it to be the last time." "Neither do I." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't want to lose you." He took my face in his hands, his voice barely a whisper. "You won't." "I promise." We kissed then, the kind of kiss that holds every hope and fear and promise at once. When we finally pulled apart, I felt like the forest around us was waiting too, like it understood how much this moment mattered. Back in town, the days before Jamie's trip were a whirlwind of packing, last-minute work projects, and stolen moments. We had breakfast dates that stretched into afternoons, walks along the river, and quiet nights where we just sat, not needing to say much. The morning he left, I stood at the train station, watching him board. He turned and waved, smiling that goofy grin that somehow made everything feel okay even when it wasn't. I stood there long after the train pulled away, heart pounding with a mix of hope and fear. Over the next weeks, we texted constantly. Video calls stretched into hours. We shared the small stuff, the weird snacks we found, the music we were listening to, the way our days unfolded. But then there were the hard parts too. The missed calls, the time zone mix-ups, the loneliness creeping in when the screen went dark. One night, a couple of weeks in, I was curled up on my couch, phone buzzing with a message from Jamie. Asterisk, I miss you. I typed back quickly, asterisk, I miss you too. Then, without thinking, I added, asterisk, I came back to that forest trail tonight. It felt empty without you. His reply was almost instant. Asterisk. Let's try again. When I'm back. Asterisk. That promise was a lifeline. And so here I am, still waiting for him to come home, still carrying the memory of that first night on the trail, the way he made a move in the dark, and I decided to follow. Because sometimes, love doesn't come easy or neat. Sometimes, it's about standing in the dark and daring to believe there's light ahead. And when you find someone willing to stand there with you, maybe that's enough to make all the difference. Waiting, please, miss. I don't care who you are, how strong you think you are, or how many times you tell yourself you can handle it. Waiting for someone you care about to come back messes with your head in ways you didn't expect. Jamie had been gone for almost 2 months by the time I really started to feel it. Not just the missing him part, which was always there, but the way life itself seemed to shift. My routine at the bookstore felt duller. The city looked different without him around. And the nights were the worst. Some evenings I'd find myself wandering back to that forest trail alone. It was stupid, I know. Walking those paths in the dark, hoping the trees would hold some kind of magic, or maybe a trace of him. But it was the one place where everything felt honest, where the quiet made room for the jumble of feelings I couldn't shake. One night, about 6 weeks into his absence, I was halfway down the trail when I heard footsteps behind me. My heart jumped, thinking maybe it was someone else out for a late walk, or worse, someone who didn't belong. But when I turned, it was Jamie. I blinked, unsure if the moonlight was playing tricks on me. Jamie? My voice cracked. He smiled, this tired but genuine smile, and nodded. I thought you were in San Francisco. Yeah, I was, he said, stepping up beside me. But I couldn't stay away. I laughed, a mix of relief and disbelief. You're kidding. He shook his head, eyes serious now. Nope. I missed this. I missed us. We stood there for a moment, the night wrapping around us like a secret. I was supposed to come back in a few weeks, he said softly, but I had to fly back early. Work stuff, complications, but mostly, I needed to see you. I felt my throat tighten. I missed you so much. Jamie reached out, brushing his fingers through my hair like he was afraid I'd disappear. I know. We kept walking, slow and close, the forest alive around us. For the first time in weeks, the weight inside me lifted a little. That night marked a turning point. Jamie's unexpected return wasn't just a surprise. It was a chance to breathe again, to figure out what we really wanted. Over the next few days, we spent every waking moment together. The city felt new with him back. Every coffee shop, every park bench, every corner held a little more warmth. But as much as I wanted to pretend everything was perfect, we both knew the challenges hadn't disappeared. One evening after dinner at his apartment, Jamie sat across from me, looking serious. We need to talk about the future, he said. I nodded, bracing myself. Yeah, he sighed. I've been offered another contract here. It's for 2 years. But after that, who knows? I'm still figuring things out. I looked at him, seeing the vulnerability behind his usual confident grin. I want to make this work, he continued. But it's going to take effort, from both of us. I reached across the table, taking his hand. I'm in, no matter what. He smiled, relief washing over his face. That means everything to me. We talked late into the night, laying out hopes and fears, making plans that felt both daunting and exciting. We didn't have all the answers, but we had a promise. To keep trying, to keep showing up. A few weeks later, on one of our nighttime hikes, Jamie surprised me. I've been working on something, he said, pulling a small canvas from his backpack. It was a painting. Rough at first glance, but as I looked closer, I saw it was the forest trail, bathed in moonlight, with 2 figures walking side by side. I wanted to capture that night, he said softly. When everything changed, I smiled, touched. It's beautiful, he shrugged, looking a little shy. You inspire me. That night, under the stars, I realized how much Jamie had become a part of my world. Not just a visitor, but a teammate, a partner. The forest trail that once felt lonely was now a place of hope. Months passed, seasons shifted, and every night hike, Every quiet conversation, every shared laugh built something steady between us. One evening, as we sat by the creek, Jamie pulled out a small box. I stared at it, heart pounding. He opened it to reveal a simple ring. "I want to keep walking with you," he said. "Not just on trails, but in life. Will you be my partner?" Tears blurred my vision as I nodded. "Yes, absolutely." In that moment, surrounded by the soft sounds of the forest, I knew that sometimes the best moves are made in the dark, when you're brave enough to reach out and hold on tight. After Jamie slipped that ring onto my finger, we sat quietly for a long time, just listening to the creek and watching the stars peek through the branches above us. It felt like the forest itself was holding its breath along with us, like this moment wasn't just ours, but something bigger, an unspoken promise woven into the night. The thing is, it wasn't perfect. We both knew that. There would be hard days ahead, late nights filled with work stress, the occasional argument over something silly, the challenge of balancing our dreams and realities. But sitting there with his hand in mine, I felt something steady and real, something I'd been searching for without even realizing it. I looked at Jamie and smiled, the way you do when you find someone who sees you, really sees you, and still wants to walk beside you. "You know," I said, "I never thought I'd find this us on a forest trail at night." He laughed, that familiar warm sound that always made me feel like I was home. "Neither did I. But I'm glad you made that move," I added, squeezing his hand gently. He nodded. "Me too. It changed everything." As we stood up and started walking back, the moon finally broke through the clouds, bathing the path in soft silver light. It wasn't just the forest lighting our way. It was us, together, stepping forward into whatever came next. Sometimes the best kind of love isn't about fireworks or grand gestures. It's about the quiet moments, the late night talks, the shared smiles, the willingness to be a little vulnerable and a lot brave. It's about finding someone who makes the dark feel less scary and the future feel a little less unknown. And with Jamie, I knew I'd found that. So yeah, that night on the forest trail wasn't just a beginning. It was everything. The start of a story I get to live every day with the person who makes even the darkest paths feel like home.